brother doing?
He's doing good, doing good.
Did you put him in 100 yet?
You know, he is a member.
He is, okay.
But he just won't come to
I get it.
I make sure he asked me there, are my dues up? I said, yeah, Pastor, I make sure your dues up. Yeah, but I can't get you to come.
I get it. Revivals is a tough act to follow. Tell me your name again.
Yeah, I'm going to give you my call.
Okay, I'm going to tell him my
Yeah,
name.
oh yeah. My wife and I, man, I tell you.
When are you
and
going
then
back?
Sunday morning.
Man, you already here, son. Just stay and come there. Come to me, brother, man. I get you a whole pass. No, that's great. You ain't going to get back home in time for no church now. Bless you, D.
Yes, sir.
Take one and no one. Good to see you, brother.
All right.
Good to see you. I told him y'all already gonna miss church Sunday anyway. Just hang out with him. Just catch a later flight. It'll be all right. Oh no, absolutely. Don't have to miss that.
Right.
Absolutely.
Down there or here? Here? All right, cool. What's up, man? Oh, chilling, man. You know. Work every now and then. Be happy you recorded. Y'all problematic,
Good morning. No. Good morning. See, you woke up this morning. You can see, taste, talk, hear, smell, and hopefully you are in your right mind. So there is so much to be grateful for. Good morning. That's awesome. I'm Tracy Knight, and I'm just going to open up this panel and turn it over to our esteemed moderator. Before we do that, we have to take a moment to thank our sponsors. Without sponsors like Amazon, who is sponsoring this particular session, we would not be able to bring you stellar workshops like you are about to partake in. So Amazon, thank you so much for being a valuable investor in the 100, in the work that we're committed to. So, without further ado, welcome to the Empowering Black Voters to Overcome Systemic Attacks on DEI, Black History, and Societal Access. We're going to be in here for about 90 minutes. There will be about an hour panel discussion and about 30-minute Q&A. And I'm proud and elated to introduce my newest friend here, Antoine C. Wright, who is a senior advisor for the Democratic National Convention. He is also supported by an illustrious panel of Cliff Albright, if you could raise your hand, from Black Voters Matter, he's one of the founders, Roland Martin, who is a political commentator, Isaac Hayes III, founder and CEO of Fan-Based Social Media, Inc., and Io Atterbury, who is the Chief of Culture for the League of Women Voters. Without further ado, please give a round of applause for our panelists and our moderator, Antoine C. Wright.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning, everybody. Let me start with what my mother and father taught me to be the two most important words in the English language. And those words are thank you. I know she thanked Amazon for sponsoring this, but that does not matter if you all did not show up. So thank you all for being here this morning for this very important conversation. Give yourselves a big round of applause. You know, it's good to be back. Last year I was here, as most of you know who were here last year, and we started this conversation around the importance of the black male vote. And most of you know from my work, both at the DNC, to re-elect this president, vice president, to make certain that Hakeem Jeffries, a black man from Brooklyn, is the next speaker and the first black speaker of the House of Representatives in Washington, D.C. Y'all should be clapping for that. But since 2014, I've spent a lot of my time traveling this country, talking about the importance of the black vote, but leaning in with precision about the importance of the black male vote. Because without a doubt, black women have carried their fair share in this country for many things, but black men, we have some work to do. And so I spent my time traveling the country talking about this. So we started this conversation last year. And like going to church, like going to the barbershop or the beauty parlor, the nail salon, like mowing your grass, you can't just do it once and think that's going to solve all your problems. So here we are again, having conversations with an expanded scope when it comes to DEI and black history and societal access. So I am so excited and so pleased that you all will join this panel. I'm going to open up this conversation and allow the panelists to give a brief, and in South Carolina we mean Sunday school brief, introduction of themselves. They are very decorated and colorful in their own way throughout their careers and the work they're doing. But I'm going to allow them a minute and 30-second introduction of their own. I'll start here to my left.
How you guys doing? Good morning. My name is Isaac Hayes III. I am the founder and CEO of Panelists. I'm an Atlanta native, been here my entire life. 20 years in the music industry as a producer and songwriter. And I am the son of the late, great Isaac Hayes. If anybody doesn't know who that is. Yes. Applause.
You know, you say that, the next question is, can you say?
If the world depends on what I can say, that's easy. I started managing my dad's estate after he passed away, but in 2018, I got an idea that we needed to build an infrastructure in social media because black culture is the economic engine of social media. So I decided to found a startup called Panelists, which is basically, in my opinion, the heir apparent to TikTok and Instagram, but it's black founded, black owned, and invested in by people just like you, but it's for the entire planet. And so I've been fortunate enough to raise $11 million in 3 equity crowdfunding rounds, and I'm raising $17 million right now for our Regulation A round on a platform called Start Engine. So I'll tell you about that in a little bit. But my passion is creating black wealth and getting us into investing and owning infrastructure. So if we're not doing that, that's our thing. So I'm a new tech founder, but I'm a passionate tech founder.
All right, thank you. And good morning, everyone. Io Atterbury here, the only woman on the panel this morning. Woo! And I am the chief of culture at the League of Women Voters. And how many ever heard of that organization? Okay, a few hands in the building, but it is an organization that is focused on defending democracy and empowering voters. In our role, it's a legacy organization, federated model. What does that mean? We have levels of league at the local level, the state level, and the federal level. And we are focused on DEI as a core tenet of our work. That's work that I lead as under in addition to governance and also membership. Why it's important for us? Because we do see it as a business case. The league is over 100 years old. It was founded with racist roots. Like if you trace any legacy organization in this country back, you're going to find that it had those are the beginnings. And the membership is most of our membership is over 60 years old, 80% white. And as you know, the American electorate looks like us.
And if this organization is to last, then they must become more diverse and include those of us that look like us and others in this room to go move forward. And one of our goals is to abolish the Electoral College. Why? Because we know the Electoral College is a backstop, again, with racist roots. So that's the work that I lead, and it's, it has its challenges, but I'm glad to be here to talk to you all today because it's work that we need to do in this room. So we're gonna have a family conversation today. But I will bring institutional lens to that conversation. Thank you.
Don't give it a fire.
Let me say this before I get into my intro, because we've been doing some work with the league over the past couple of years, and let me tell you, it is not your grandmama's league, all right? It is a different League of Women Voters, and they've been very much about it and being in the streets with us. Let me make sure I'm in the right place real quick. Let me see if y'all can help me out. When I say black voters, you say matter. Black voters. Matter. Black voters. Matter. All right. So I'm Cliff Albright, co-founder and executive director of Black Voters Matter. We are a power-building organization. We are not just a voting organization. We are a power-building organization, but we know that voting is one of the most important tools that we have to build power. But we also support a wide range of other work around a variety of issues, everything from economic justice to environmental justice, obviously voting rights, housing, you name it, healthcare. We organize around these issues because we know that's how you mobilize our folks to participate in elections, right? Not just by talking about the voting process, but by talking about the issues that our communities care about, talk about the issues that affect our families every day of the year. That's why we do this work all throughout the year, not just 2 weeks before an election, but all throughout the year. We call it the 365 work. And so a big part of that work that we do, as I said, is also fighting for voting rights. We've been involved in trying to get, and I'm sure we'll talk about a little bit later on, the key legislation that, we need across the country, the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act, the Freedom to Vote Act. We'll talk about that some more. But the other thing that we do is we travel around the country motivating people as we drive around in what we call the blackest bus in America. Any of y'all ever seen the Black Voters Matter bus anywhere, seen on TV maybe, or maybe in your communities? Because we know that we've got to energize our folks, again, to get them to participate in these elections. And I'll pass it on the road.
All right, glad to be here. All right, why you talking about? I'm the only one on the panel. Yeah, the 100 black men. 70 brothers gonna be on panel of the Delta Convention. Yeah, let's see what happens then. Glad to be here. Tracy said I'm a political commentator, and I'm like, yeah, but I'm actually host of Roland Martin Unfiltered, also founder of Black Star Network, and the reason that's important because we've got to be able to own and control our own media. And so we walked in here, I was like, yo, was the session been recorded? So man West said, oh yeah, it's a session been recorded. I ain't seen no camera. I was like, all right, give me 5 minutes. So when you own it, you do what you want. So all y'all folks know we're not here. We're live streaming this right now. Go to our YouTube channel, go to the Black Star Network app. But again, that's why it's important, because we got to stop talking just to the room. There are other people out here who need to hear what we're talking about. And so that's why streaming this is important. So we're doing that right now. So look forward to this conversation. And glad to be back at 100 Black Men of America Conference.
Y'all give it up for this esteemed panel. Y'all all right out there? If y'all all right, say I'm all right. All right. Say we all right. We all right. Say we gonna be all right. Roland, I'm gonna start with you if you don't mind. During the 2016 election, you, me, and others went around the country and said, it's not about Trump and Clinton. This is about the opportunity to put at least 2 people on our nation's highest court. Not for 2 years, not for 4 years, but for a lifetime. The same sentiment we feel out here now, oh, I'm frustrated, I'm mad, I'm pissed off, I'm not motivated, was lingering in. Trump wins, he put not 1, not 2, but 3 extremists on the nation's highest court that will be there for the next 50 to 60 years. As a result of that, things that we care about have now, and they're no longer under attack, they're dead. DEI. Can you tie the knot all together, Roland, about how the elections and the courts and DEI have come full circle?
Well, literally, as we sit here, Supreme Court just came down with their ruling regarding bump stocks. So the folks the cities that passed those rules banning bump stocks, they just declared those laws to be unconstitutional. So now they're allowing that. And so this is a far right-wing Supreme Court, but it wasn't just 3 Supreme Court justices. Remember, the last 2 years of the Obama-Biden presidency, Mitch McConnell held up 100 judicial nominations. So the reason Trump was able to appoint 237 federal judges, because 100 of them were supposed to be appointed when Obama was president, but they actually held it up. And so when you talk about our electorate, you have to understand power. How do you control power? When it comes to judges, that's the White House and the Senate. And so it's not just focused this year on, well, Biden and Trump. You got to focus on Sherrod Brown in Ohio, Tester in Montana, the races in Arizona and Nevada. Those are critically important because if you don't control the Senate, then you can't confirm the judges. And so what we have to recognize is we actually have to go back, I believe in back in the future. We have to go back to what happened during the Black Freedom Movement, some call it Civil Rights Movement. We had freedom schools. The problem is too many folks today don't fully understand politics and connecting the dots. And so when you talk about public policy, you have right now conservative billionaires. The effort of Ed Blum and the lawsuits, that is a $1 billion funded program. Understand, in my book, White Fear, How the Browning of America is Making White Folks Lose Their Minds, I've been literally saying this since 2009. Why? Because it was standing in front of us. When Obama was elected president, a lot of us went to the inauguration parade and we never left. We were so excited seeing a black president.
Say that again, Roland.
A lot of us went to the parade and we never left. For 8 years, we were just sitting here like, because we were happy to see a first black family. Everybody else left. That was a poll that dropped shortly after the inauguration. The question was asked, are you optimistic about the future of America for your children? Every ethnic group, majority said yes. Only one group, less than the majority, said yes, white America. September 2016, a poll was asked, are you optimistic about the future of America economically for the next 10 years? Black people, lowest wealth, highest optimism. Latinos, second lowest wealth, highest optimism. White folks, highest wealth, lowest optimism. I told John Adlon at CNN, we are, in 2009, we are in the stages of white minority resistance. He goes, hold up, white folks are the majority. I said, but 2037 is the key, because they are going to be minority. When you look at black, brown folks become the majority. So the attack, this is a very specific attack. And they're using laws that were passed to benefit black people now against black people. They're using the 1866 Civil Rights Act against black people. So what we now have is this well-funded effort, and we have a completely disjointed effort on this side, and there's been no consistent, focused response. You've got Silicon Valley, the billionaires there, pulling billions of dollars out of various programs. They are now siding with Trump because they're going to keep those tax cuts in 2025. So we have to understand every program. If you had a law firm, a corporation, I don't care what it is, every program that has been in place that has been about black advancement for the last 40 years is going to be sued. We better be prepared for the onslaught because it's coming, because they have a legal apparatus in place, judges in place, and if Trump wins, they are going to move forward and look at Project 2025. They literally have a provision in Project 2025 how they're going to target anti-white racism in the Justice Department. Trust me, that's their goal.
Cliff, I'm going to keep this going because I think this is certainly fertilizer for the soil. You do a lot of work in states. We hear the former president talk about these things, these cases like DEI need to be settled in the states. We get so focused sometimes on the presidential election, we forget about the importance of local elections. Tie the knot between DEI and states having to say so. In my home state of South Carolina, legislation was passed to eliminate DEI programs from all state government agencies. That is the new wave that's happening, started in the South, happening around the country. Can you talk about how tying those two things together, states' rights, local elections, building community?
No, it's a great question. I mean, the first thing I have to say on that is, when they say things like that, like, oh, we wanted to go back to the states the same way they said that about abortion rights, right? There's a lot of stuff they say they want to go back to the states, but then what you see them doing, you see them trying to pass national bans against abortion, against contraception, IVF, and all that. And the same thing applies to the racial stuff. Oh, we want the states to decide it, but then at the same token that they're acting at the federal level to end all the things that Roland was just talking about. So it's really a dual strategy. They're trying to do it at the federal level, but also at the state level. But to your point, what goes on in these states is critically important. We say all the time that in fact, and even more narrowly, what happens in these counties in a lot of these states. Because we say it all the time, it's our rural counties in the South that are often the laboratory. It's a petri dish where they concoct all this stuff. And then they take it statewide. And then they take it federally. And so we have to pay more attention to what's going on at the state level, at the local level. And that's part of what we do when we have our conversations with folks. We want them to be motivated about the federal stuff, about the president's election, about the Senate, and we talk about all that stuff. But for some people, especially folks, not necessarily like the folks in this room, folks that aren't regularly engaged, right? For folks that aren't super voters, the best way to get them involved, the on-ramp, is usually something local. It's that local ballot issue. That local referendum, right? Or maybe it's that local state house seat, because what's going on in these state legislatures, y'all, is crazy. Banning books, banning education, banning AP, all the other stuff. So we have got to have conversations that connects all these dots, that lets folks know, yes, we got to be involved at the presidential level, and we got to get accurate information about what's going on with the presidential election. We got to be involved at the Senate level, but we got to be having conversations about what's going on at that state and local level, because again, for some people, that's going to be the thing that actually is the hook that gets them more directly involved.
Cliff, my mentor, my political father, Jim Clyburn, always says the closer your government is to you, the more important it is for you. And so we've got to fine-tune our focus a bit as we plow forward going into November and Novembers to come. To our dear sister who came to disrupt this black man conversation. I know black women have always historically been disruptors. And she's further proof of that. Look, when we talk about the attacks on DEI, when we know because of this president and this historic vice president, black women are in roles and positions that they did not even have the sense to pray about or pray for. We also know that black women own more businesses than ever before in the history of this country, and all the great trends that are happening because of black women. But at the same time, when DEI is under attack, black women are under attack. Can you center that for us in this conversation? Because I want to give these sisters in the room a little flavor of this too.
Yeah, I mean, when you start looking at all the things, right, about DEI and women and the work that has to be done in this space, but I want to just go back to one thing that's really simple, is that it's about us being active locally. There are always going to be attacks. If you look at the history of DEI, we want to call it DEI, we call it affirmative action. It started in the it's been since we've been here, right? We've been fighting. Particularly got away in the 1950s and 60s with affirmative action, all the civil rights movement work that started. And it changes, the game changes, but the game stays the same. So for us, at the level, like at the institutional level, there was an influx of dollars that went into philanthropy in spaces that created these chief equity officer positions. We saw them. And as Roland talked about, it started to shrink. And those of us that were paying attention, who watched the 538 map, who weren't surprised that we had the change in regime that we had in 2016, because we were watching, we saw the numbers. What you talked about in terms of who voted for what, you started to see in the second administration that the support for President Obama, white folks had plummeted. So black women, black folks, our people of color carried us through. And we still have work to do. For black women, we're under assault in all the ways. There's medical apartheid. There's all the things about, who saw the report about black women and maternal health, maternal death, right? We're highest rate, and particularly areas where there's affluence, right? So we have to think about, we have to go back to our old school kind of each one, teach one, the freedom schools you talked about, right? We've kind of gotten away from that because we left our communities. We are now sometimes in integrated places. We have great accommodations. And so we are now looking at a system that's doing what it was supposed to do, but it's shifting. And so we have to be smarter and thoughtful, not smarter is not the word we're looking for, but we have to be more thoughtful about how we approach these things. So education, so for instance, I'm gonna make a plug for the work that I do. Vote 411 is one thing that we have for the legal women voters, where you can go get information about what's happening in your community, understanding the issues, and being active locally. Who's on their PTSA? Who goes to their city council meetings? Right? Like those things that they apply to Black women, they apply to all of us. And Black women are usually the credible messengers. We have to be better, all of us have to be better users of social media. What does it mean? And what messages are we giving? Are we having these visceral reactions to different things? So I want to say it's all looped into our experience as Black folks. Black women are under attack. Black men are attacked. We're all under attack. And we have to continue to we have to go back to some of the things that we've lost or haven't been paying attention to in terms of how we build community, build relationships, and energize each other, and get people to understand that what's important and what are the voting issues that are important, particularly our young folks, right? And it's hard to make that connection. The idea that you should do this because your ancestors said so, because you were told that that people did this for you in the past, that doesn't land with them, because they need to know about now. How does this impact me day in and day out? And they don't understand that the government is actually not working the way it's supposed to. Senate is supposed to hold the executive branch, right, accountable. They're not supposed to line up. We got a situation where people are lining up because they want power. And so our power is in the connection, the building, and getting out here to protest and vote. Hold accountable your elected officials. As Ron talked about, we still celebrated, but we didn't do the other part of it, which is we need to be out here continuing to push. That's what's next for us. We can't take our foot off the pedal because the system is running away from us. And we've got to go back to some basics about how we actually build civic engagement.
Thank you. To Alden Hayes, the brother who can sing on the panel. No romance without finance. No romance without finance. Political romance, social finance, you name it. No romance without finance. When we talk about these attacks on DEI, there's a financial component to it that hits us harder in the wallet than it does other communities. Can you lay the groundwork for that?
Elaborate further, because I want to make sure I target.
If the University of Florida eliminates the DEI jobs, that means some Black person is out of the job.
Correct.
When George Floyd was died, millions of dollars were pledged to billions were pledged to DEI programs. Most of that money never showed up in the mailbox. The financial component. That money was supposed to be allocated to programs to impact our community. The money never showed up. They eliminated jobs. Round the circle, if you will, about the financial implications when programs like DEI are under attack or eliminated.
Well, see, I don't know okay, I'll say this. I understand diversity, equity, inclusion, but I also question that because I'm someone that's lived in Atlanta my entire life. I don't know, anybody in here from Atlanta, like lives here, if you live here, raise your hand. Anybody? Okay, cool. So it's not very many people. I want to tell you this. Living in the city of Atlanta my entire life, I've never felt like a minority. Never. Never one day. It gives you a different perspective, a different energy. I've never felt second to a white person ever in my entire life. I don't know what that feels like. And that's a different energy that you have. When you don't live in a city like Atlanta, I say you grow up with something called like a minority existence or a minority mindset, understanding that white supremacy runs everything, and you fall second, third in place or whatever, and try to fight your way through that. A lot of times, that is a big waste of time, a big hurdle that we don't really, we spend decades trying to permeate, and it doesn't necessarily work out. I saw myself as a young man see a city like Atlanta that was crafted from religious leaders leaving the church and going into politics. You got to remember, Dr. King was assassinated in '68. We had the first Black mayor in '73 with Mayor Jackson. So we went from the church to politics because I'm pretty certain that the statement was basically, or the ideology was, we can march to our feet or soar and bleed, but if we don't change laws, then they're going to just pick us off one by one and nothing's going to change. And so Atlanta is a carefully crafted, beautiful city based on black power, black political power. And even, William Hartsfield in this might have been 1940, 45, warned the white community of Buckhead that the black community of Atlanta was coming, and that there are going to be black voters. And so for me, when I think about DEI, I understand that, but that's trying to be included in something as opposed to creating our own. And so,
okay, this is where I got.
Here we go.
No, this
Here we go.
No, this is where data has to also explain this.
Okay.
1972, black people were getting 0.0012% of all city contracts.
Oh yeah.
So when Mayor Jackson comes in, says, listen, tumbleweeds will be going down the airport runways before they be built.
100%.
So black political power drove black economics.
Right.
The problem, though, we've seen this in the last 3 election cycles. Atlanta's almost had a white mayor.
Yeah.
So part of the problem is that when we talk about black political power, and Cliff is seeing this all the time, what we're seeing is the last 5 elections, black turnout has gone down. You had a high with Obama in 2008. Then in 2009, we actually had a 9-point gap between black men and black women.
Mm-hmm.
So you see the decrease in turnout. So the problem is, what is happening is, because we're not voting our numbers, what's then happening is we're actually about to start losing power. So the power, so you take folks who are 65 older, they vote at the highest.
Yeah.
They also self-identify as Democrats.
Yeah.
Then you go 55, 64, then you go 45, 54. Once you drop below 45, the voter turnout drops, self-identification drops. So now the problem is we're living in places where our turnout is 18, 20, 22, 26, and so that's going to impact the economics.
Well,
And remember, even though Atlanta has been the black Mecca, the white folks in the state capitol been trying to take that airport. And the same thing, they're trying to take the Trophy Lumumba in Jackson. So what is happening is, in southern states, they're seeing these black economic power bases, and now they're using their power from the state level to try to erode that power. And so black folks in Atlanta got to be real careful.
let me finish. I hear you. So, what I wanted to say was that blueprint that was created by Maynard when he came up with like the minority participation contracts in the city of Atlanta, like we see less than 1% around the nation. Atlanta, it's been up to 33 to 40% of minority participation in contracting, and that is a huge deal because you got to think about this. This is one stat that I remember former Mayor Kasim Reed talked about. He said that the Atlanta airport makes $6 billion a year in concession revenue. A sticker done, food, anything. 33% of that by law has to go into the pockets of black people. Those businesses have to be owned by law, right? So when you think about, everybody knows what Shake Shack is. Have anybody ever been to Shake Shack? Have you been to Shake Shack in the Atlanta airport? Have you ever been there? Well, the owner of Shake Shack in the Atlanta airport is a black person, and they had to be a black person because we're creating laws to do that. My point is that if we don't start to duplicate that model and spread it out statewide over other states, back and forth, we are going to lose. So when we talk about DEI, I think we also have to concentrate our power, our voting power, and then spread it. Because I say this all the time. I don't want to offend anybody, but if Los Angeles County is a 6% black population, you're never going to get nothing passed in Los Angeles County if you're a black person. What I do say is that when people have opportunities to move and concentrate their power, like Jackson, Mississippi, right? Or Birmingham or Montgomery, Alabama, or Shreveport, Louisiana, or Atlanta, Georgia, we should take opportunities to do that. My only issue with that is we do get into the tough conversation of, are we willing to do what it takes to make those types of changes?
So these are some of the challenges we have when we have these discussions in our community, right? Because and it's valid points on all sides. Part of the challenge that we see is, when we make the economic argument around, whether it's Atlanta as a black mecca or some of the other cities, the part that we lose is this: Atlanta's also got one of the worst ratios of wealth to poverty, right? Even within the black community, right? And so sometimes when we have these discussions, And I think this connects to Roland's point about like the decreases in turnout. We're having an economic discussion, and we got a whole segment of our community that has not benefited from the fruits of some of the economic development. And then and that's part of the reason why in a city like Atlanta, why we run the risk of having a white mayor is because when we say, hey everybody, this is the Black Mecca, you got segments of the Black population that are like, this ain't no Mecca to me. I'm not benefiting from that. And so we have to be prepared to be able to have a discussion that recognizes all of that, because what happens is if we don't have a discussion and deal with that lived reality, we can't act like they're crazy. We can't act like they're just lazy. We got to deal with that lived reality, because if we don't deal with it, that's when the disinformation comes through. And that's when the people start coming through and say, see, your cities are failing you. Those Democrats are failing you. You need to come on over to our side. In every piece of disinformation, there is a sprinkle of truth. In every piece of disinformation, there's some real concern that our community has, or else the disinformation and the propaganda wouldn't find a place to land. So we gotta have the real discussion and be prepared to deal with the realities of where our politics and our economics are not necessarily benefiting all parts of our community. That doesn't mean that there's not good stuff happening. That doesn't mean that this administration, they got a good story to tell on a range of issues, including criminal justice, including Black farmers, including HBCUs. There's a good story to tell, but if we don't tell the full story to those parts of our community that aren't seeing it and feeling it, then we're going to lose them.
Well, and I guess and I guess I started this point, and Roland, I think you have appreciation for this, is that all progress ain't permanent. Yes. And we've made a lot of progress in our community, from airports to ports, from C-suites to the streets. We've made progress. But we also see people who are abusing that progress. Because although we may have a senior vice president of community engagement, that job is on the line. And if that job is eliminated, then the money for the YWCA, the Summer Basketball League, the Summer Job Program, all that goes away. Billions of dollars when a Black man was killed on the camera. Pledged to do better in this country. Now those same people saying to hell with that, we're not going to do that. Yep. So it doesn't matter that we had success, respectfully, under the mayor. It doesn't matter that we have people in jobs and roles. Those things could not exist in the short term if we're not careful. And I guess that was the economic romance part of the conversation I was trying to bring through. You want to follow up?
Well, I mean, the reason that I make that statement is that if there is not an idea or a mindset that political power, everything comes from political power. And we focus a lot, even with this national election that we have coming up. I see online the dissatisfaction what a lot of people have to say about the Democratic Party. Like young Black men don't really like get behind the Democratic Party. What I can say, what I always say is, for me, my experience is all I've seen is Democrats work on behalf of Black people. Because I've seen Maynard Jackson, Andrew Young, Shirley Franklin, Sean Reed, Andre Dickens, so on and so forth, create laws that benefit Black people. My message to us is, when are we going to take that message and expand it and do more, right? And recreate and duplicate that. Now, he mentioned income. One thing that I hear all the time, and I think is a good talking point, is Atlanta has the largest income, the biggest income inequality in the country, I guess, for Black people, right? Has anybody ever asked who has the best? Like who has the best income inequality? And it's really like 4% in Atlanta, right? About 4% income inequality. I think the best place that income inequality exists with people is like Salt Lake City, Utah, just like 11%. So there isn't this huge gap. When we say it's still income inequality. What I'm saying, the point that I'm saying is, hold on. No, listen, I understand that.
We're gonna get there. We're gonna get to the audience in a second. We got to plow through. We got to plow through.
We're gonna get there, but what I'm saying is that it's not, the gap is not as wide as a lot of times some people say that it is. And sometimes that gets exacerbated. I'm not saying that it does not exist, ladies and gentlemen. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is that if we're not focusing on creating powerful people to change laws, then we are always going to be asking, like DEI is going to be something that we're always asking for. One thing that I say about this all the time, and I've never heard a majority of group of people ask for inclusion in anything. Show me any time where a bunch of white people have moved anywhere and said, you know what we need? We need some black people, some Latinos, some gay people to move in. The only people that want acceptance are minorities. Because we're begging to have a seat at the table. No, that's the truth. Find me a place where we're begging to be involved in something, right, that we don't control. Nobody in the city of Atlanta is begging to be included in anything right now.
So let me,
We gotta.
so let me say this before I make this.
Let's go diverse.
One second. Hold up. Before I make my comment.
Make it quick.
I'm a firm believer in this here. When our greats in the room, we also give show them respect. Put your hands together and show appreciation to Ambassador Andrew Young. The good alpha man right there. What we have to understand when we're talking about politics, that is economics. Elon Musk is the richest man in the world. Not because he pulled himself up by his own bootstraps and he's brilliant. It's because he has maximized tax incentives from cities and states. Jeff Bezos gets tax incentives to build warehouses and bring jobs to places. And so what we have to understand is that is economics. There are a lot of us, and I see this on the social media all the time. Man, we gotta do for self. You cannot show me any major corporation in the country that's done for self.
Okay.
We literally provide massive incentives to oil and gas, to every single industry. I understand where do for self comes from. But what we have to understand is that I had folk tell me, I had a young brother who came on the show at a school, and the reason he was actually booked on my show, brother from Georgia, the reason he was booked because he was supporting the voter suppression law in Georgia. But when he comes on the show, I don't want to talk about that, I don't get myself involved, I don't want to talk about my school. I'm like, no, you ain't changing the subject. So when I was challenging him about government assistance, folks are like, oh, there you go with the government. Well, guess what? The school that he was trying to get for young black boys was a public school. He had to go to government to get to school. So they were mad at me because I was breaking down government assistance. And so we have to understand the language that is being used for people who are not registered and who are not voting. And so what we're doing is too many of us are having 30,000 feet conversations, and we're not saying on the ground how this particular policy, that a bill that was passed, impacted this person. There are black people right now who are saying, man, my pockets were full when Trump was president, not realizing that a Democratically controlled Congress passed the bill. Not realizing that the $1,400 check that you got in 2021 wasn't Trump, that was through Biden and Harris. Not realizing that the child tax credit went up to $2,000. Not realizing who cut the earned income tax credit. But what's not happening is, and this is where black media comes in, that we have to own up to. Our information sources have completely been decimated. Ebony is not Ebony it used to be. JET doesn't exist. BET has a monthly news program that barely anybody watches. TV One canceled my show in 2017. They have no news. Aspire, no news. Revolt, a weekly show that very few folks know about. You have your black newspapers, many don't have reporters. And so when I'm talking about fighting for campaign dollars to advertising, and also $340 billion being spent on advertising, that black people get 0.5 to 1%, is because our organs, Black Enterprise is no longer the Black Business Bible. They barely do any stores. They're a conference company. And so what we right now are dealing with is a devoid of information sources to get information to our people. And what Cliff said, what then comes in, Instagram and TikTok drives misinformation. And now we got to spend loads of effort to get folks to stop believing the lie. That's the battle that we are in right now.
And I want to add,
Very quickly,
I want to say that, everybody's got a chance. It's my turn. Okay, so I want to say,
You had your turn. You had your turn.
I want to say gerrymandering is an issue, it's sort of nonpartisan, right? It's nonpartisan, but I want to say gerrymandering, as Cliff was talking about, is one space where we're dividing the political power of black communities. So when you concentrate, that's why you got to focus all the way through, is that they will find ways to break it up. Right? That's one thing. But also, when you're talking about people ask for handouts, I want to reframe DEI. I want to reframe this. This is our stuff. Our ancestors built this, and all this was built on the backs of the labor that's provided. And what we're saying is, we have been denied access and opportunity. Not to be work hard. How many hundreds of black communities were decimated, drowned, or burned down when we were thriving over the years, and then put us behind it, continue to happen. So when you talk about DEI, it's not us asking for a handout. It's the same. We pay the system. I pay my taxes. We pay taxes. Part of us pay more. Most of us pay more taxes than our billionaire folks who get government assistance. But because they're on the upside, they get their money before the system. Those that get on the outside of the system, you're talking about taking money from, taking their money out of the system. So what I'm saying is, this is about us building power and talking about what we deserve, what we've been denied, and now we've been moving forward to take back. That's all I'm saying about that.
We're going to plow through these next set of questions here and try to get through them as we can. Cliff, you flirted with it, let's state it. Misinformation, disinformation down south, we call it lies. Black people are the #1 targets for it, in particular online, where I'm told by some of the research we've got back at the DNC that 60% of all people are not getting their information online. Traditional TV's out the window. Roland, you kind of touched on that. Talk about how we as black people have to be careful about our information sources and where we're getting information quickly.
Yeah, I mean, they have been very strategic about trying to find, one, just in terms of where they're advertising. They are, unfortunately, the conservative side has actually been better at micro-targeting our community. There are ads running right now on some religious stations that half of our community knows nothing about. But they are targeted to segments of our community with like anti-LGBT information. They're going hard on them. And so they're picking out, and then there's some stuff that they're targeting to black men, right? Which is a whole discussion, because we really need to have the black men discussion.
Trying to get there.
You're trying to, okay, so I'm gonna leave it alone. We're gonna circle back to it. I lost my train of thought talking about black men. But the disinformation is very strategic. And it's on a range of issues. It's on, like I said, LGBT, it's on the economic stuff, it's on criminal justice stuff. And the crazy part is, some of this disinformation that they're putting out there is on topics that there's actually a strong story to tell. Like, how many of y'all have heard that this administration has done nothing on police accountability, right? People upset, we didn't get the George Floyd Act, which is true, right? But check this out, we marched in the streets for months to get justice. Spurred on by what? Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery. At the end of the day, it was the Department of Justice that prosecuted those who killed Ahmaud Arbery. It was the Department of Justice that prosecuted those that killed Breonna Taylor, because the Negro in Kentucky refused to do it, right? It was the Department of Justice on top of state charges that came in and also did hate crime against Chauvin, who killed George Floyd. That was the federal level, right? Then you add on all the work, and let me just say this right here. Kristen Clark and the Office of Civil Rights at the Department of Justice, they've been balling, y'all.
We yesterday announced against the patterns and practices against the Phoenix Police Department.
That's right.
There have been 10 patterns and practices investigations under this administration, 1 under Trump.
Exactly. So holding police departments accountable, holding even corrections, even prisons for deaths happening in jail. So I'm saying, but still you have the disinformation out there. Some of it gets spurred on by some black influencers, right? Some of them are black influencers who are actually billionaires or multi-billionaires, right? So they got their own set of interests, but for whatever reason, putting out disinformation about some of the stuff that has actually benefited our community. So,
but the problem though is, and I've said this specifically to the White House, they haven't talked about it. So the problem is, Biden has this view of we need to create a wall between the White House and DOJ. I'm like, dude, you appointed the Attorney General. That's your guy. I said, I just understand. And when I say, I've said it to the VP, to the Chief of Staff, I'm like, I don't understand your DOJ, you're putting prison guards, wardens, cops in prison. Y'all, not one time has Karine Jean-Pierre talked about it from the podium. I said, so the impression in the public is y'all ain't done nothing. I said, you haven't even told your story. This is where messaging comes in. And so we just have to understand that, and this is how, this isn't a Democratic conversation for me. This is a black conversation. And so what we have to do as individuals, I can't wait on them to figure it out. I can't wait on for some white Democratic strategist to figure out black folk and what story to tell. Because, as you started out with, we know exactly what Project 2025 is about. And we understand the hell is going to be on the other side of 2025.
If we don't get this election.
So we have to be messengers in our communities. What needs to be happening right now in every single black community, you should be organizing town halls, having discussions, and actually taking the questions. So when the people say, man, I don't know what they're doing, your deal should be, fine, we're going to answer the questions, but we have to understand the role that we have to play here, because I'm telling you, the strategy that they are, Leo, they are sitting on multiple billions. 2 billionaires have taken over Texas. They are targeting us. There's a bullseye on our back, politically, economically, socially, and we had better understand the couch cannot be an option in November.
And when we get to the next steps, real quick, when we get to the next steps, we'll talk about things that everybody in this room can do, but one of the things I want y'all to do in the meantime, and we'll circle back to it, if y'all can scan that QR code up there that says Black Voters, scan them both, right? But if you can scan the one that says Black Voters Matter, it'll take you to the site, and we'll talk more about what everybody in this room can do, because guess what? Everybody in this room is an organizer. Yep. Everybody in this room is a messenger.
I'm gonna come to you quickly. Your wheelhouse is the online space. We know that's a growing space. We also know there's an education gap when it comes to our community. Can you briefly touch on how we got to catch up in that regard?
Well, I think one of the things that we've done with Fanbase is we've done a partnership with Propel, which is a nonprofit powered by the Southern Company and Apple for HBCUs. And so we have the first ever social media platform HBCU partnership. So no, they've done partnerships before, but I want to make sure that we are empowering the youth and educating them on actually the skills that are going to move forward in America, in this country, in the world with AI and technology, the things that we're behind. Trade skills are always going to be something that are totally important and impactful, but I want to make sure that we're teaching young people about what's coming, because AI is going to eliminate a lot of jobs, but there's going to have to be people that are prompters, there are going to be people that understand this place, this field, and the technology that we even use at Fanbase is garnering AI. So we have a lot of young people that work for us. I want to make sure that we are empowering the next generation of young people to be able to handle the onslaught of, the evaporation of the workforce. I say that one of the things that, why I even created the company is so that I wanted to turn every single person on the planet into a business. One of the things that I love about Fanbase is that you can have a follower, but you can also have a subscriber to anything that you want. And it gives a person the ability to build a business just off having a social media platform to create content and monetize. That's any type of content. I know we've seen it before, but there's been a lot of things that we've done that revolutionize social media as far as even the way that you can actually purchase subscriptions and so on and so forth. And so if we are looking at the technology sector, and I think all of this for me boils down to building multi-billion-dollar companies, and I'll say this for us, is educating people on building multi-billion-dollar companies and exiting. I said this before, that Facebook has a market cap of like 1.3 trillion. TikTok has a market cap of $350 billion, but where do we own any of these platforms? These platforms don't work without our dances, our clapbacks, our songs, our skits, our comedy, but we're exploited. But on the cap table, in the boardroom, who owns these companies? And so I can proudly say that I can have a conversation with any of the CEOs of any of these companies and say, I dare you to say that your apps don't work without black people. And they don't work without black people. And so my point is, like, if we don't own infrastructure, right? And so this is the thing about, the conversation that I think is most important, is that these tech companies are fueled by already wealthy individuals that come from money. Like Jeff Bezos, he started Amazon with $100,000, I think, from his father-in-law, right? Elon Musk's father had money, Trump's father had money. So if we're not building opportunities to create generational wealth through technology, and I know real estate is one thing and retail investing is another, but when we scale these businesses and we're not creating infrastructures that we own, what we typically do is we add our energy to an infrastructure and then they monetize it. One of the first things, everybody knows who Grandmaster Flash is, and I gotta say this. Everybody knows who Grandmaster Flash is. The first time that Grandmaster Flash DJ'd on 2 turntables and a mixer, somebody should have pulled him to the side and said, don't show another person what you just showed me. Let's go figure out how to build turntables and mixers. Because everybody that's gonna do this is going to need the infrastructure to do it. Fast forward to today, Pioneer, Techniques, Serato, they own the DJ industry, and they've literally created a piece of hardware off his idea. He's the one that put the 2 turntables and the mixer together and do that. Now you got the DJ industry is like a $16 billion a year industry. That industry should be owned by Grandmaster Flash. He should own that industry. So I'm in the business of creating infrastructures rather than being customers to our creations.
Antoine, we also have to challenge our organizations. We are literally steps, and was it this floor, Ambassador Young, where Dr. King spoke, 1967, the last essay it was right here. Okay, that speech is where do we go from here? 1967, August of 1967. I got it on my phone. One of the most important, I dare say, the most important program that Dr. King initiated, it actually came from Reverend Leon Sullivan, was breadbasket. The problem that we are operating is we are walking around a thinking report without realizing that we're actually driving the market share of many of these companies. The reason you had a significant number of black millionaires created by breadbasket is because they leveraged black people to say, if you do not do business with us, we won't do business with you. It wasn't just that speech in August of 1967. He literally said the exact same thing on April 3rd, 1968. Why am I saying organizations? We have significant organizations, Divine Nine, 2 million plus members, 100 black men. We can run down the line. How are our organizations leveraging our power to force those corporations to spend the billions they promised up to George Floyd? We're not. So what's happening is, when we are sitting here, oh, why aren't they doing this here? But we're not moving as a collective. Again, if you go listen to the April 3rd, 68 speech at Mason Temple, Dr. King talked about collective. So part of this deal is, if we're talking about building more black millionaires and billionaires and building black business with capacity, that means we have to begin to operate as a collective. We have to have our organizations. The problem right now is too many of our organizations are operating insular, their own business, and not thinking outside of that. You do not have a single black organization that has taken the lead to challenge corporate America by saying, you made the promises of billions of dollars, where's the money? You know why? Because our major civil rights groups got significant money, NAACP about 140 million, Urban League in excess of 100 million, Black Lives Matter was about 90 million, and other organizations, and folks were satisfied. The problem with that is, and I'm just going to use Pepsi as this ain't got nothing to do with Coca-Cola in Atlanta, but I need us to understand money. PepsiCo did a deal with the National Urban League to stand up black restaurants, 5 years, $10 million. I absolutely support it. PepsiCo wants to drive $100 million in receipts to black-owned restaurants. I didn't support the idea. The problem is they can't track it. So how you know you're going to drive it? PepsiCo spends $3 billion a year on marketing. If PepsiCo committed 5% of its ad budget to black media, that's $150 million a year. That's $750 million over 5 years. And you tell me of the three, which has a greater impact on black America? 5 years, $10 million, $100 million in receipts for 5 years, or $750 million? You do not have us challenging PepsiCo saying, how much Pepsi do black people drink? So why aren't you investing in black-owned media? It's $750 million over 5 years. Now, that's just media. Take that and now apply it to 30 other corporations. We need black organizations to stop being focused on internal business, stop being focused on a company writing them a check for a banquet, and saying, we are here to drive billions of dollars to black people, because when we do that, then we can actually sponsor the damn breakfast.
To the sister right here, so she start yelling and screaming at us again. Education.
Yes, I wanted to say, like, it's all about education, right? And it's so important. The reason why they're pulling back a little bit of education they have about Black history, which is American history, but it's not separate and apart from, but we've allowed it to be segmented that way. We have to think about education all the way up the chain into understanding civics, understanding how money works, financial literacy. Someone mentioned financial literacy earlier, but understanding how money works. And for us at the League and just in general voting rights space, lacking the understanding of how policies impact neighborhoods, how policies impact individuals, and that's because people aren't getting that day for day, and we can't, as we talked about earlier, we can't forget about our folks on the ground because they're suffering the most. And I want to say, as we think about this going forward, this idea of collective action is really important. It's something we haven't practiced in a long time, right? And we need to do that because we are individual organizations focused on our bottom line because we're 501c3s, and philanthropy created this. Philanthropy created this space of, like, I'm giving you, Black Lives Matter, 5%, right? If 5% was supposed to be the floor, it was never supposed to be the ceiling. It became the ceiling, it was supposed to be the floor. And so it's like...
Black lead only get 5. We get 0.5.
Yes, 0.5. And that's the fearless fund. We're not even going to go there with that. But, you know, it's thinking about education in a large spectrum, but it begins with us touching young people and helping them understand the value for them, and then spreading out. So it's each one teach one, each one reach one, organize it at the individual level, thinking about the community level with organizations, because we at the League, we partner with Black Lives Matter. We partner with SPLC. We're looking to the future, into just specific about the elections coming up. We gonna talk about it? Can I just say something about that real quick?
You can.
Okay, we're thinking about like what you're gonna encounter. AI robocalls. Who's ready? Who's prepared for that? The voter purging that's gonna take place. Who is all those pieces, the mass purging, the voter intimidation, the challenges. We want to make sure folks not only are front and understand the issues that are coming and why it's important for them to go, what is in their self-interest, but also be prepared for the obstacles that are going to be put in their way. And the obstacles, we talk about people being lazy and being apathetic, but that's not what this is. This is about people, this voter suppression is about paying you low wages, not giving you PTO, and then closing the polls, limit the polls in your area so you can't get there. And we have to just make people understand, help them put a voting plan together come this fall. That's what I want to say there.
Y'all give it up for this family. Somebody say, woo! Woo! I do want to touch on one thing before we go to the artists. Now, before we go to the artists, let me say this. We want questions. Somebody say questions. Somebody say questions. Somebody say questions. I don't need your biography. I don't need your life story. I don't need you to set up your questions. I need you to be crystal clear about what your question is. Somebody say question. Before I get to that, Cliff, because out of our meeting here last year, and out of a panel like this where we focus on the black vote, 100 black men, myself and West Bellarmine, we have a 16-city plus tour where we're going around the country into community. We started in Cleveland, we've been to Pittsburgh, we've been to Philly, working with local chapters, having authentic conversations with black men and other constituency groups in our community, Roland Martin, about the importance of the black male vote and how we can all rally together, because when black folks win, when black men vote, our community wins, and we absolutely have to do that. So Cliff, very quickly, a minute and 30, can you frame the importance of the black male vote for this room full of black men here in this next election? Very quickly.
I'm gonna make it real quick, and I'm probably gonna leave out some stuff because I really want to get to y'all's questions. But anytime we start this discussion about black men and the black men vote, we've got to start it with this. There is no group in this country more progressive than black men, except for black women, right? And even that margin
Sustained.
And so we need to start the conversation there, because too often, y'all see all these headlines, y'all see all these polls, what's wrong with black men, they switching, they doing this, they doing that. And so we can't start the discussion from a place where we are lacking. We can't start the discussion from the place where there's something wrong with us, like we're being abnormally against our interests or anything like that. We gotta start the discussion with nobody has pushed this democracy forward more than black men, except for the role that black women have played. And we have done that together. And so we start the discussion there. Once we start the discussion there, then we can talk about, well, where are the gaps? Where are we not talking to each other enough? Where do we need the 100 to go out and do these town halls along with Black Voters Matter and Rolling Water and Filtered and all this other stuff? We can have all that, and we got some of those answers, but just because we're short on time, I just wanted to start it with, black men, we've been doing the thing, and we're going to keep doing the thing. We're just going to keep finding ways to do it even better and stronger.
And I would add to that, every social movement in this country, arguably in the world, has been fueled by black people being on the front line, leading that effort. This moment that we're in, where we have to plow forward, should be no different. When we talk about the power of the black vote, it's black men and black women, not one or the other. Because there is a strategy out there to divide us. To say that black women are the only ones who are doing it, or they're the only ones who can do it, or that black men are somehow or another drifting to support a white supremacist by the name of Donald Trump. We can't let that narrative seep into our community. We have challenges, yes, but we can't let that narrative seep into our community as if it's a reality. Questions? Somebody say questions. Questions. Quickly with your question.
There you go.
What would you say, or what is your suggestion when you feel like DEI is being used as a weapon against you as a double-edged sword?
So I happen to have a friend, right? So I would say the language used is historically marginalized communities. That we have a system in play that advantage, like it has the cumulative advantage of whiteness and the cumulative disadvantage of blackness. We don't have to say, just say, we're talking about historically marginalized communities. It's not because we just are, again, it is about making space for everyone, and historically marginalized communities have been denied, and we're talking about access because we're not included, and we need to be represented in the space in the same representation we have in the community, in the demographic.
I also need us to not fall for the DEI okey doke. Now remember, if you read Ellis Close's book, The Rage of the Privileged Class, today's DEI person was the 90s and the 2000s global diversity officers.
Yes.
Before the global diversity officer in the 70s and 80s, it was the vice president for community affairs. That was the Negro who went to all the black events with big checks and small amounts. Okay? So understand, that's the history of this. So the problem is, what we do, we fall for, oh, I had a meeting with the head of DEI who has no budget, who has no P&L responsibility. So we have to not fall for the trap. A company that is real about DEI makes it a part of their P&L. A company where it's all about performative, that's the sin of black personality. But also keep in mind, 75% of all DEI jobs are held by folks white. So we can't get sucked into the DEI conversation, and also where we're the only ones fighting, and we also have to do this here. Now this might make some of y'all uncomfortable. There's been no group that has benefited more from affirmative action DEI than white women. And the problem is, right now, the folk who are fighting for DEI look like us because we haven't challenged enough white women to say, where the hell y'all at? Because y'all been getting paid, and we've been fighting for the program, but y'all sitting right here. So that has to, but I'm saying that has to happen in a broader way.
Thank you, Roland. I'm gonna pull a Donald Trump on you and cut your mic.
You can try. Good luck.
Hey, my name is Ken Wainwright, and I wanted to ask just openly to be able to partner with each of you, because I worked up at the Capitol. One and two initiatives that we were pushing was for a labor task force with African Americans to help African American men, women, being able to partner up and use technology to open up more jobs, especially for single parent mothers. One of the biggest problems that we face, and this is something I would love to get a comment from each of you, is that we had so-called pro-black, so-called pro-labor legislators who never made the time for us, even though we had the legislation and we put it together. And you had Republicans, unfortunately, who actually made time. I'm not Republican. I don't have a Republican vote in my body. But it was so disappointing to see our own people not make time for us. This is the question, because
What's the question?
is being able to partner up with this. What do you combat when there's legislators who are African Americans who are not making time when they're at that Capitol, but they're over there campaigning as if they're pushing for us?
I think the question is, what do you say to hold black legislators accountable and folks accountable who are in the Capitol, who advocate and fight for programs? Can you quickly answer that, please? Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, that's accountability, right? And that's why we always say it's not just about election day, it's 365 work. The real work starts the day after election day, where we gotta be at those meetings, we gotta be at the city council meetings, we gotta be at the state legislature meetings, we gotta, have our days on the Capitol, even in DC. We need people like you, so I'm glad that you're framing it as how can you connect with us, because we need people that have that inside information about what folks are and are not doing, to be able to, share that, and then we can hold folks accountable. That's part of the work that we do all throughout the year. It's not just about the election. It's how do we get folks to do what they said they were going to do, which is a whole other piece, because too often we got folks running who don't have a real agenda, and you can't hold somebody accountable when you didn't have an agenda, right? So anyway.
Thank you, sir.
Good afternoon. Simplest Chocolate, you said earlier that we have work to do as the Democratic Party to get black men. My question is, there's work to do, but there's nothing out there for a straight black male on the platform for me. When I talk to other black males, they say ain't nothing for me, so why I need to go?
Well, I'm glad you brought that up.
He said there's nothing from me.
His question is from a platform perspective, what's the agenda for black men? I'm glad you brought that up. And I'll answer it. So, I heard the straight part, but I'm not going to deal with that.
I'll deal with that. Because we got to deal with it.
I want to answer the general question.
Yeah.
The black male agenda. So we are working on the campaign in the White House, putting out a straightforward black male agenda in the next couple weeks or so. And you will be able to see that, hear that, share that, but also that's for the next 4 years, but we have to remind folks what's been done these past 4 years. And I think because part of the information gap as I've been traveling the country is, if I ask the question, can you name 2 things that the Biden-Harris administration has done for black people, most people can't do that. And so it's a double task. Educate, but also inform about it.
But that's one. Ask him, what are your 3 issues? What are your 3?
3 things you care about.
Well, what are your 3? I can't hear.
Prison reform.
Okay, prison reform.
Abortion, I do care about, but it's not the biggest thing for me.
Okay.
Reproductive freedom.
Okay.
And I care about economic wealth.
Okay, you care about economic wealth. First thing, what this administration did, which Obama did as well, they unbundled federal contracts where Republicans bundled those contracts. 2, they've had 3 successive years where you had an increase in the number of black-owned businesses and also resources being driven to those businesses. That's actually happened. Now, when you say prison reform, I've done every time they've thrown a warden or a jailer in prison, I've done the story. They have imprisoned more corrections officers and wardens in the last 4 years than in the previous 3-4 administrations. Last point, when you talk about issue of reproductive rights, that's also a privacy issue. We have to understand that the reproductive fight ain't just about abortion. The ruling the other day is in there. They are also going to be going after birth control. They're going after any number of things. So they're going after in vitro fertilization. So we need to understand, don't get something to somebody else's deal. Say, those are your 3 things. What have they actually done on those 3 things? They've actually done this stuff. What you need is the information to back it up when you talk to the folks.
And let me just tell you on the economic piece, cut black child poverty in half by 50%. There was up to $7,500 checks that came by way of the American Rescue Plan. That's the fancy language for it. That came from Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. That $100 billion went to save and rescue small black and brown business during the pandemic. That came from the Biden-Harris administration. The executive order that Cliff mentioned, where we banned the federal chokehold, banned no-knock warrants, held police departments accountable like the one in Phoenix that was just announced yesterday. That's because of an executive order by the president. When you talk about reproductive freedom, the black woman vice president, who we will hear from shortly, has been on the front line advocating for what this White House has done by way of the executive order. But we cannot do that unless we have a House and a Senate who will give the president something to sign into law to codify these things into law. So again, there's a lot to be done, but we've got to give you the information to be empowered to talk about it. I got you, and that's the whole point of me being here.
Which is why we're not going to wait on them. We're going to develop our own messaging. Listen, when Chuck Schumer celebrated those 200 federal judges, the White House went, 200 federal judges. I put a graphic out that said, 200 federal judges, 58 black. So again, we can't wait on them to figure out how to message to us. We got to message to ourselves.
So the electoral college, can we get rid of the electoral college? Without the electoral college, the last Republican president would have been George Bush 1.
No.
Go ahead.
No.
We have a plan for that as a league. We're going to do it, and so our plan is to start with one person per vote. National popular vote is a way to get there, but that's a goal for us. And we have, I don't know the stats on it, but we're working towards that, and we will do that over some time.
I'm sorry. The reality is that's in the Constitution. You got to have Congress pass it. Then you got to have 2/3. You got to have the ratification of the Constitution amendments, and them small states ain't giving up that power.
So we'll see.
Okay, yeah.
Hope, you gotta have hope.
You're right.
And a strategy, right? Hope is not a strategy. That's a strategy.
Okay.
Good afternoon, guys. Question for Isaac Rowland. I hear you guys talking about the lack of spending in the black community, black media.
Yeah.
Is there a collective that exists, or are you guys open to creating a collective so we can go after that money as a group?
My plan of role has, so for me, one of the things that we did with the startup, and people don't know, is that Barack Obama and Joe Biden passed this law called the Jobs Act. And it basically eliminated the accredited investor role and allowed any person to invest in early stage startups in businesses. And so what that means is that if you have a business, you can go get funding from your community. In 2023, less than half of 1% of all venture dollars went to black startups. Less than half of 1%. It's crazy, like less than half of 1%. So what the Fearless Fund has been trying to do and are now being attacked for, we weren't getting that money anyway, so now they cut that off. With equity crowdfunding, which is what we've done at Fanbase, because the majority of the investors in Fanbase, over 15,000 investors, they're African American people. So for me, I always want to create the conversation that we can invest in our own businesses and scale those businesses. There's a guy by the name of Orrin Michaels who invested in Uber in 2010. He put $5,000 into Uber in 2010. He was already rich. So not some guy that's like anybody does that. He put $5,000 into Uber in 2010. In 2019, when the company went public, his $5,000 was worth $24 million. None of y'all ever got a call for that. None of you guys ever got that. Y'all can put $500 into Uber and turn it into $2.4 million. The point that I'm making is that we have to start investing in our own businesses and the ability to scale our businesses to exit. So for me, that's why I created.
How much does it take for somebody to invest in?
Oh, the minimum to invest in Fanbase is $399. Now, mind you, I've raised $11 million in 3 rounds, and now we're raising $17 million. The importance of this is there is no black-founded, black-owned tech startup that rivals Facebook, Instagram, or all these people. The people that are on the cap table of Fanbase. See, I've seen Fanbase go from a $20 million company to a $50 million company to an $85 million company to a $160 million company. My point is, I'm going to scale Fanbase to a $100 billion company, so we're going to exit.
Real quick, the first 10 people that invest in Fanbase today, right here, will match it. Life Goes Matter will match it, so that's $4,000. The first 10 people that do that,
Wow.
will match up to $4,000.
That's fine. But hold up. Go to start. Tell them where to go.
Go to startengine.com/fanbase to invest in fanbase. Because again, like this is critical, because when you hear these large exits, these people selling these companies, like Be Real just got sold for $540 million. It was only around for 3 years. Those people invested in that company, sold that company, and that's a bunch of rich people walking around that built those companies off the power of black people, and we don't own none of these companies. And that's what frustrates me.
I have to answer this question. We have tried to do the Black-owned media collective, but Negroes don't want to cooperate. No. This is a fundamental problem that we have to confront. We try to do that, but what's happening is, one, corporations know, how can I pick off the least expensive Negro? You cannot have a cooperative if folk then go cut individual deals, because you now increase your power. So the problem, and we've tried to do this. I have said to the other black-owned media folk, if we walk in as a collective and demand X amount of dollars, we can figure out once we get the money how to split it up. But what happens is, are we cool with them, so they funded this, are we fine with this here? And I'm sitting here going, but they still at 1%. When we called out General Motors, they said, oh no, we're spending more than that. We said, what's the number? They said, that's proprietary. We're like, oh, we supposed to believe y'all? They admitted they were only spending 1%. We forced them to agree to spend by 2025, 8%. But here's the game. We made it clear that's black-owned media. They were like, no, diverse. I'm like, no, I'm speaking for black people. I'm not fighting for nobody else but black people. So we have got to learn in the black-owned media space, I'm not fighting for black targeting. I'm fighting for black-owned. There's a difference. And that's part of the problem. That's why we still are having an issue. And you know what happened? A lot of those companies got money after George Floyd's death. Guess what happened last year? Softening of the market, start pulling back. Then they calling me. I'm like, yo, I have been missing for 3 years. You should have stayed with the collective. Yeah. So that's the problem that we have, the inability for black folks to move as a collective, which is what King talked about April 3rd, 1960.
I'm going to ask my panel to shorten the answers because we got a short amount of time and a few more questions. What's your question?
Hi, my name is Kyla Mormon, and I think this is a good conversation, but a lot of times it's hard to begin the conversation and even get it past the question of, are people see Trump and they're like, neither. How do we even approach conversations like that, especially for young people who feel really discouraged right now?
Cliff, take that question quickly. One person answer. Cliff, take that.
Real quick, the simple answer is, we don't start it with Trump or Biden. We don't start it with any candidate. We start the discussion with, and I think Roland asked the question to the brother, what is it you want? Like, what's important to you? What's the issue that you're passionate about? And we have a conversation. We center the person. We center our community, not the candidate, not the parties. There are clear differences between the candidates and clear differences between the parties, but we don't center that. We center you, and we center you, and we center whoever it is that we're talking to. That's what starts the discussion. But too often when we started with, are you registered? You're not registered? Okay, bye. Or are you for Biden? You for Trump? Okay, bye. Then when we center the wrong thing, that's a conversation killer. I'll also add this very quickly. When we tell some folks, now look, y'all, we all know somebody marched for us, somebody bled for us, somebody died for us to vote, right? And that works for some folks. But for the folks that aren't engaged, that doesn't work. That's a conversation killer. We can't center that. It's all true, and it's important. But when we start the conversation with that, that can be a conversation killer for the person that fundamentally wants to hear what's in it for me and my family and for my community. Where am I in this discussion versus the candidate, the party, or even the historical piece?
But one of them will win.
That's right.
What's your question?
Joseph, Milwaukee. What can we do as 100 black men to actually get the younger people out to vote? Because the same message that's been portrayed to the millennials and up does not reflect.
Hold on, what city you say you're from?
Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Praise the Lord. Let's start right here. If 50,000 people in Milwaukee had voted in 2022, who voted in 2018, you have a black United States citizen. So what you need to do when you get back to Milwaukee, take out young folks. You need to go back to Milwaukee and you can pull the data and look at the precincts look at the precincts, who voted in 2018 and who voted in 2022. You might look at a precinct that 300 registered voters, and you might see only 40 voted. You now know what doors to knock on. The problem, this is what we do. This is, and the only reason I'm speaking from this is my parents were civic club founders. What we do is we hope vote turnout. Then we say, well, let's throw a rally. The data is already right there. You can go back to Milwaukee, clip them, they got groups, they can pull the data and say, here are the low propensity voters, here are the high propensity voters, here are the folks who used to vote and now vote, and that's where you target. This election is going to be on the margins. People talk about who won. Trump won in 2016 by 77,000 votes in 3 states. Biden won by really 40,000 votes in about 4 states. So understand, this is a margin game. Milwaukee, if they had voted, and Mandela Barnes still mad at me because I said, bro, you didn't target Milwaukee enough, it would be a black United States senator. So we have to change how we're doing our voter engagement. Go get the data first, and then say, if there's 500 people registered in this neighborhood and only 100 voted, we're going to have a forum in this neighborhood.
This is our last question, then we're going to get closing comments because we are over time.
So my question is for Ms. Atterbury. So I'm a physician at an academic institution that will become anti-DEI starting in October. Do you recommend those around stay and fight the fight or relocate and join the collective?
Well, the fight is the fight, right? So what I tell people is DEI just gave the name, it's what I do. So we don't have to talk about it, we need to be about doing the work. So it depends on how comfortable you are. It's my personal brand and mission that everywhere I go, I think about my community, I try to make space for them. But I don't need the DEI logo to tell me to do that. So I just think that's my answer there is, and what you feel comfortable, because, and as Ron said, what I'm talking to my folks about is we say it, and but I want you all to do it. I'm trying to make it in the work, not about the title.
Let me just say this real quick for the brother from Milwaukee. Anybody else that wants to get involved in reaching out to your community, connect with us, scan that QR code. That's QR code specifically for our texting program, because we layer our street and door outreach with texting, social media, build all that stuff, right? But texting is one of the easiest way for me to get folks involved, like in a setting like this. So scan that code, it'll connect you to, we do texting Tuesdays every Tuesday. And we do it the same way that Roland just said. We'll say, okay, we want to hit these precincts in Milwaukee this week. Or we want to hit these precincts in Ohio in preparation for that Ohio referendum that they had last year. So anybody that wants to get connected, please scan that QR code. We got tons for you to do, and we got the resources to help you get it done.
That was it. And for the league, we have local and state leagues across the country. LWV.org, we have issues that they work on that are local. So also join and connect with League. And League in Action. We also have Outreach Circle. We have 2 leagues, League in Action, Outreach Circle, that also mirrors what Cliff was talking about. We partner with them. So, and this ground game, it's a ground game. We won't talk about it. It's not a 9-to-5 joint. You got to go to kitchen tables. You got to knock on doors. That is where we need to move.
And share data. The content creators on the fan base, the work that we do, you can repost that information to your social media circles. And just understand, you have no idea what goes by. You have no idea. When last year, our State of the Union coverage, I was talking to a conservative about the issue of reproductive rights, and I challenged her on the issue of pro-life. That clip, on our YouTube channel, it only did 400,000. Other people have shared that on their platforms. That clip alone has done 30 million views. So you don't understand. So you have to be using your social media also to drive messaging. That's my whole point. So this is a collective thing. It's not, hey, I'm gonna wait for Antoine to send us some graphics. No, hell no. If I see a graphic, no, straight up. If I see somebody put a graphic, I will sit here. Oh hell yes, I will copy and paste that damn thing and repost the hell out of it. But again, that's how we have to do this.
No, look, as we close out, Roland's right. I am giving you all your deployment papers. This thing don't work if all of us don't work, period. Right? I don't care if you don't like Joe Biden. I don't care if you don't like the vice president. But you got to like your community enough to know the difference between who's fighting for you and who's fighting against you. And that's what this election is about. It's not about the difference between two evils. Donald Trump is an evil man.
Amen. Amen.
Joe Biden is not an evil man. You may not agree with him, but he's not an evil man. So let's not buy into these narratives, this misinformation that we hear online in our communities. Educate yourself. Don't be a fool, but exercise your ability to know and to vote, because that is what's going to move us forward. Y'all give this panel a big round of applause. Now, I need to follow instructions. I'm told there's a survey that you all can.
Yes, they can download it if you have the app on your phone.
If you have the app on your phone, download the survey. Give us high marks.
What app?
What the one like minute? The conference app. The conference app.
Some folk don't know.
Yeah. The conference app.
The conference app.
I ain't assuming.
Information back.
Download the conference app. Fill out the survey. Thank you all for being here. We look forward to seeing you next year. But certainly we'll see you all next door as we welcome the first black woman vice president of these United States.
Lord.
Startagent.com/fanpage. Sorry, it's this QR code, so if you scan that QR code, you should be able to do that. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, go. You got it. I started with
Yeah. Yeah, $3.99 minimum. He's going to match up to 10 people, so like $4,000. 10 individuals invested.